Welcome back to another episode of the Jacob Johnston Show. So this is going to be a short video here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the joke of a closing argument that the prosecutor made in the Rittenhouse case. And just to go off and highlight just how they know they have absolutely no case whatsoever. The closing argument by this prosecutor was incoherent. Parts of his argument contradicted other parts of his argument, and he goes off and tries to set up a ridiculous standard. And of course, they're doing this because at stake here is not just Kyle Rittenhouse, but our right to self-defense. The Second Amendment itself is what they're trying to go through, because the whole argument here is when the left is on the march, engaged in violence, comes to your community, violently attacks your community, vandalizes, loots, and burns down your community, you have no right to defend yourself or your community. That's the entire argument. And so they're trying to set it up. You have no self-defense. You have no Second Amendment right. And the left, it's within their rights, somehow under the First Amendment, to violently attack you, and you're not supposed to do anything about it. So let's go ahead and go through. I got about 9 clips here. I'm going to try and go through it rather quickly, and then take a look at what the prosecutor's argument is and how ridiculous that argument is. So let's go ahead. Clip number 1.
One of the things the judge has instructed you is that when the defendant provokes the situation, he has to exhaust all reasonable means to avoid killing someone. Did he?
All right, let's go ahead and analyze that for a moment. So in that situation, and there's videos from a whole bunch of different angles here. So Kyle Rittenhouse is walking down the street, sees someone that had been kind of threatening him earlier in the night, gets into a defensive position, sees that that person who is armed is not taking any action. So Kyle Rittenhouse is backing up to turn away. But Mr. Rosenbaum, who is in the cars, is sneaking up behind Kyle Rittenhouse. And as Kyle Rittenhouse starts turning around to leave the area, sees Mr. Rosenbaum, Kyle immediately turns around and runs. He hasn't fired any shots at this particular point. Tries to run as fast as he can. Now the prosecution is trying to go off, well, he could have ran in this direction and that direction. We are talking about split seconds here. Do you think Kyle Rittenhouse had the time to stop, survey the entire area, check some drone footage to really get a lay of the land and choose a direction? No, he chose the first direction. And what did he do? He chose to run like hell to where the cars are. Why? Because if you can go through and you can get to those cars and get to the other side of the car before the person chasing after you gets there, well, now you got a car in between you and the would-be attacker, Mr. Rosenbaum, right? And if he tries to go around the car, you go around the car, well, you're pretty safe as long as you have that car in between you. But as we can see here in the footage that I did show, Mr. Rosenbaum can run much faster than Rittenhouse. So it really doesn't matter which direction he ran. He wasn't going to be able to outrun him. Now, while he was running, and you can go back and watch that video slowly, someone is shooting into the air, right? And everyone's already admitted that the rioters were the first ones to fire a gunshot in that situation. Rittenhouse turns around, points the gun at Rosenbaum, sees that Mr. Rosenbaum has no gun, and turns back around and continues to run away. It's only when he gets to the car that he starts slowing down. Now, this gets into physical fitness. Was Kyle Rittenhouse going to be able to continue running? This goes through with the way the cars were. Maybe, he wasn't able to get around the cars as fast as he was hoping, but Mr. Rosenbaum is chasing after him. Mr. Rosenbaum gets within arm's reach of Kyle Rittenhouse, which is why he had burns from the barrel of the gun on his hands, along with, soot from the gunpowder on his hands. He was that close. And as was testified to by the prosecution's own witness, is that in the angle in which the gun or the bullets entered Mr. Rosenbaum's body, he was leaning forward already, lunging at the gun. So did Kyle Rittenhouse make every effort to get away? Well, if running as fast as you can away from the situation that is causing a danger. What more can you do? I mean, it's not like there was any buildings open or businesses open for him to duck inside of. What more can you do other than run as fast as you can away from the situation that is causing danger? And yet Mr. Rosenbaum chases after him. So what kind of standard is it when trying to ask, did he do everything he could to retreat or get away or to avoid the situation? Well, if running away isn't enough, as fast as you can, having actually done nothing, well, I don't know what is. You know, you're trying to get away, the people are chasing after you. What more can you do to try and get away? All right, let's go to the second argument.
I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that in this situation, the crowd has the right to try and stop an active shooter. They have a right to protect themselves. The defendant is not the only one in the world who has the right to self-defense. But what does the crowd do to try and stop the defendant? I submit to you, and this is not a criticism of them, but they use almost the least minimal, least intrusive means possible.
Now, of course, I am using videos, putting it on top of the prosecutor's statement, just to really highlight on top of it how pathetic, how out of touch his statement is. So the least possible means, and I'm going to get back to that crowd attacking Kyle Rittenhouse in another video clip here because he brings it up multiple times. The least intrusive mean, they are chasing after him. They are knocking him down, kicking him, jump kicking him in the face, using a skateboard like a bat. Yes, like a bat to hit Kyle Rittenhouse. And then another person comes up, runs, points a gun at Rittenhouse, who then fires the shot. So, I mean, you go through and you take a look at it, the least possible means. I mean, here it is. You know, they're trying to say an active shooter. An active shooter has to be actively shooting. The situation is already over. And Kyle Rittenhouse was trying to get away, trying to get to the police for protection. And the mob chases after him and goes off and violently attacks him. And it's not just a one-on-one attack. I mean, I heard a lot of times throughout the prosecution, yeah, and he didn't, defend himself. He didn't go fist to fist with Mr. Rosenbaum, which is a ridiculous standard when you think about it, because you have no idea of Kyle Rittenhouse's fighting ability and experience, no idea of Mr. Rosenbaum's fighting abilities and experience, the strength, the difference between them two, the speed, the stamina. There is a whole lot of things that go into this. But the whole idea is that you must get into a fist fight, which, by the way, is not exactly safe. And there's a whole lot of things that can go into that. And I'll get into that. Well, I'll get into that right now. Is that if Kyle Rittenhouse is knocked on the ground, Rosenbaum can get out on top and choke him. He can bang his head against the pavement. Even just fist fights with, if you hit people hard enough, long enough, and often enough in a fight, you get blunt force trauma. Break their nose, shove the nose bone up into the brain, whether intentional or not, is death. So they're also wanting to set it up where you don't have the right to defend yourself until you're at the moment of death, when you no longer have the ability to defend yourself. It is absolutely ridiculous how this prosecutor is trying to set this up, where basically the standard for self-defense is so high that you have no right to self-defense. All right, clip number 3.
You can see from this video that Mr. Rosenbaum is not even within arm's reach of the defendant when the first shot goes off. The defendant fires 4 shots in quick succession. And I'll come back to this in a moment, but you'll note during this entire sequence, it's the defendant who chooses where to go. He's the one who decides to run where he runs. And he slows down right as he gets to these parked cars. That's what allows Rosenbaum to get closer.
Now, that is one of the most ridiculous statements. So it's Mr. Rittenhouse that chooses where to go. Therefore, if someone's chasing after him, then he is leading them to a particular area in order to shoot. This is absolutely insane This is an argument that you would make when you have no argument at all. So someone comes up, sneaks up behind you, threatens to kill you. You run away and they chase after you. By them chasing after you, you are actually leading them to where you want to go. What? I don't know what has been the dumbest argument that this prosecutor has tried to make in order to try and make a case when there is no case. Oh my God. So running away as fast as you can is not enough of a trying to exhaust every means possible to avoid a confrontation. And by running away, if someone chases after you, you are actually leading them to a place where you can kill them. Now, he completely lied about Mr. Rosenbaum not getting close to the gun. That was debunked by the forensic evidence, by the video. I mean, part of his argument is to basically lie to the jury, to tell the jury, don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe these videos, don't believe your lying ears about any of the audio in the video. I'm going to show you something, and then I'm going to tell you that it shows you the exact opposite of what you're seeing here. All right. So clip number 4.
One of the things the judge has instructed you is that when the defendant provokes the situation, he has to exhaust all reasonable means to avoid killing someone. Did he?
And of course, the answer to that question is yes. But that isn't even the most ridiculous. I mean, they keep harping on this. All reasonable means to escape the area. And we keep covering this. All right, so let's move along because, of course, if running away as fast as you can, trying to avoid people, trying to get away from the situation, running as fast as you can and them deciding to chase after you, if that isn't all reasonable means in order to try and avoid the situation, I don't know what is. All right, but let's go ahead and continue on with the prosecution's closing arguments.
This is Exhibit 25. This is the annotated aerial footage. You see the defendant approach, running in the same direction as Mr. Rosenbaum. This is where the pointing occurs in the direction of the Zeminskis. You can see Joshua Zeminski's right there on the screen. I'm going to put the cursor over where the Zeminskis are. They're right in there. The defendant is pointing his gun right here, and he's pointing it in the direction of the Zeminskis because they're standing next to that car. And then the chase occurs. Now, what's interesting to me is watch when the crowd starts to run. The crowd's already starting to run here even before the defendant has fired a shot. That's likely because they heard the first shot from Joshua Zeminski.
Okay, so he's going off and he's showing this video. So Kyle Rittenhouse comes up. He sees the Mr. Zeminski having a gun, who was already part of a group of people that, along with Mr. Rosenbaum, who has already threatened Kyle. Kyle gets into a defensive position. Is he pointing his gun at Mr. Zeminski? Not really. I mean, his gun's pointed in a downward direction. But I guess if Mr. Zeminski, let's say, is east of Kyle and Kyle is facing east with his gun pointed towards the ground, well, that is pointing the gun at him, and that's provocation. And then Mr. Rosenbaum comes around, and while Mr. Rosenbaum is chasing Kyle, who is trying to flee, trying to get away, having not fired a single shot at this point, the Zeminskis fire their guns first into the air. So Rittenhouse is trying to run away from the situation. He's being chased. He's hearing gunfire. And he's still, instead of firing back right away, instead of turning around and shooting, he just does a quick check, doesn't see Mr. Rosenbaum have a gun, and then continues to run until he has nowhere to run, and until the last moment where he either defends himself or he has no idea how long he's going to live. Right? Mr. Rosenbaum could take him, take away his gun, shoot him, knock him down, bash his head into the pavement. I mean, here it is. A guy is chasing you who has previously already threatened that he's going to kill you. All right? I would believe that that does provide reasonable assumption of imminent bodily harm or death. And this whole imminent bodily harm thing. If someone's chasing you going, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to beat the shit out of you, that's kind of imminent bodily harm. But I guess they want to go off and say you should be able to read their mind to know just how much harm that they plan or intend on causing. Oh, man. Pathetic. All right, let's continue on. The next argument.
The crowd is dealing with what they perceive to be an active shooter. Someone who has just shot someone, who is still in possession of the gun, who is fleeing the scene. And how are we supposed to know where he's going next? All night that night, the crowd has been hearing the sound of gunshots. They've been hearing fireworks, firecrackers. But now, someone actually has been shot. The crowd sees the defendant running with a gun. He's lying to them. He still has the gun. He's shot someone. This is provocation to them. This is someone who has committed a criminal act and is putting people in danger.
Now this, I have a hard time figuring out what the most ridiculous argument this prosecutor is going at as he's grasping, throwing everything up against the wall, hoping something sticks. So let me get this straight. For the crowd that chased after Mr. Rittenhouse, jump kicked him in the head, hit him with a skateboard. The guy Gates, whatever his name is, last name is, I can't pronounce it, goes up, and only when he charges at Rittenhouse with his gun pointed at Rittenhouse does he get his bicep blown off. So the argument here is that crowd was justified because the act of Rittenhouse defending himself against Rosenberg was provocation for the other attacks. So I guess part of the theory is that by having a gun on him, right, where people could see it in order to defend himself, that provoked people because the mere sight of it was provocation. And then when he had to use that gun to defend himself from people attacking him, that provoked other people to attack him. Therefore, by having the ability to defend yourself, that's provoking people, and therefore you have the right to exhaust all means to try and get away from the situation. Otherwise, it's not self-defense. And then if you defend yourself, that is provoking other people, to which you have to exhaust all means in order to get out of the situation before you can claim self-defense. But even at that, he's being attacked by Mr. Rosenbaum. He sees that Mr. Rosenbaum, who has previously threatened to kill him, sneaking up behind him, getting to attack. He runs. Mr. Rosenbaum runs after him. Right? He wasn't the one who provoked this situation, but he's already trying to exhaust all means to get away from the situation, to get away from the threat. But being unable to get away, turns around, defends himself. And then the act of defending himself is provoking the other people to attack him, to which he needs to exhaust all means to get away in order to claim self-defense, which then what does Kyle Rittenhouse do? He's trying to get away from everybody. He's trying to leave the area. And so he's running away and they chase after him. So you got someone threatening to kill him. He sees him again later on that night. Upon seeing him, runs, gets chased, defends himself. That's provoking other people, defending himself. Runs, gets chased, and gets viciously attacked by multiple attackers. I mean, think about that. Having the ability to defend yourself is provocation to other people. And then if you have to defend yourself, that is provocation for even more people. And merely trying to desperately get out of the area, out of the situation, is not exhausting all means. Oh, and you see why it is that the Second Amendment, the right to self-defense, is what's on trial here. And they're trying to send Rittenhouse to jail for defending himself in order to send a message, in order to get the precedent set that if the left attacks you, you have no right to self-defense. That the Second Amendment, if your community is under vicious assault and the police are being told they're not allowed to protect your community, that you have no Second Amendment rights. And of course, I know we can go through a whole video about the Second Amendment, what it means, for a militia, a well-regulated militia, what that word militia meant at the time it was written, versus the left's attempts to rewrite or redefine words in order to change and rewrite the Constitution. But, it continues to get worse for the prosecution because there's two people. They have their first closing argument, then they have their rebuttal closing argument. And so let's go ahead and take another look at another argument that the prosecution laughingly tried to make.
This case is about the right to use deadly force. And I want to talk about that standard because Attorney Richards, perhaps on accident, misstated it. He said that the standard is that it could cause death or great bodily harm to Mr. Rittenhouse, or that it is likely to cause death or great bodily harm to Mr. Rittenhouse. That is absolutely not what the standard is, and that is not what this trial is about. The standard is the defendant may intentionally use force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm, such as fire an AR-15, only if the defendant reasonably believed that the force used was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself. Not, if you repeatedly smash someone's face, it might lead to injury.
What? So this guy happens to be a bigger joke than the previous guy. No. What the defense is saying is the right to self-defense is wrong. The right to self-defense is exactly what the defense is saying. Wait, what? So they're trying to go off and say it must be under reason that you're at risk of death or imminent bodily harm. Someone going in and smashing your face repeatedly is not imminent bodily harm? And this is where they go, he should have, Kyle Rittenhouse should have gone fist to fist with Mr. Rosenbaum. And the fact that he didn't go fist to fist shows that he wasn't defending himself. That this should have been like a bar fight and whatever. It's like, wait, are you insane? Are you insane? So you don't know if Mr. Rosenbaum, Kyle Rittenhouse at this time, he doesn't know how skilled of a fighter Mr. Rosenbaum may be. Does he know martial arts? How strong is he? If his hits are more powerful than Rittenhouse's hits, how fast he is, stand him up. There's so much that goes into it. If you have someone who has no experience at fighting, being attacked by someone who, even if they're slightly weaker and slightly smaller, has a lot of experience at fighting, the person with the more experience and capability at fighting is going to beat the bigger person. But saying that smashing someone, getting your face smashed in, is not imminent bodily harm? Someone yelling, "I'm going to kill you," and then chasing after you, and then yelling, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," going off and chasing after you to assault you is not physical bodily harm? I love how he goes, and because, if they attack you, your face would get smashed in, is not imminent bodily harm. What? I'm looking at this and my jaw was dropping as I heard this. And I'm like, are you on crack? What the hell are you smoking here? And they actually made the argument that Kyle Rittenhouse should have been willing to fight like it was a bar fight with Mr. Rosenbaum as part of self-defense. Go fist to fist. So I guess if you take that as their argument, basically if you get knocked down and the person gets on top of you and chokes you or starts bashing your back of your head against the pavement, only at the moment when you lose any ability to defend yourself and on the brink of death, do you have the right to defend yourself? Which is to say, you have no right to defend yourself. This is just Oh my God, the stupid of these prosecutors. I mean, when I take a look at this, if I were to ever get into trouble, right, and I was ever being prosecuted for a crime or something, heck, even if it was just traffic court, these are the prosecutors I would want. The prosecutors are this stupid. Oh, man. All right. Let's go ahead and check out another argument here.
You hear about how, this vicious kick that, if you watch it live, did not seem to make much contact. Spun him 180 degrees. That is Kyle tracking him with the gun and shooting at him. He's moving as he's moving. That is not the force of the kick. And the video makes that clear. But again, we're grasping at straws and we're throwing out red herring.
Well, I'm glad he's admitting it. I'm glad he's admitting that he's grasping at straws and throwing out red herrings. I'm glad that so you're on the ground, you're on your back, you're getting attacked, and you're getting hit with a bunch of force. Part of what you do when you're getting hit is maybe try to move your body in the same direction. So if a fist is coming this way and you move this way, you're kind of limiting the impact, the force of the impact, where if you move this way while the fist is coming this way, you're increasing the impact. So yes, trying to get away, go in the opposite direction from where the hits are coming from, as kind of a natural instinct, self-defense, reflex action. But with enough force, what happens? It can force your body to turn. It can force your body to move, force your body to roll over, depending on the force. But now they're trying to say that when getting hit hard enough to actually move your body, that that the force was not what moved his body. Getting kicked in the head is not what caused him to roll over into the other position. No, he was tracking him. And when the guy with the skateboard came in and knocked him the other direction, no, that wasn't the force of the skateboard. Along with the defendant, along with the attacker's entire body weight, that caused Kyle Rittenhouse to once again move over. No, he's tracking them. Oh my God. No one watching these videos believes anything the prosecutors are saying, because they're basically saying, do not believe your lying eyes. Oh, but at least he's admitting that he is grasping at straws and throwing out red herrings and just making crap up. Speaking of which, the prior prosecutor, the one who made the first closing argument, also admitted to what's really going on here.
So many people look at this case and they see what they want to see. They have a preconceived notion and they tailor the facts to fit whatever they believe.
And that sums up the prosecution's entire case. I mean, I could pull off a bunch of more clips here, and I can make this clip longer than the closing statement. I mean, I can make this entire video longer than the prosecution's closing argument, because every 30 seconds I'm staring at what it is they are trying to say, and I'm ripping my hair out, screaming at the screen like, you idiot, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard. And then after saying that, they said something even dumber. My God, this prosecution was a joke. This case is the result of you trying to bring a prosecution and having nothing to justify the prosecution. But of course, he was politically pressured to bring forth the prosecution. And at stake here is your right to self-defense and the Second Amendment itself. So I'm sure there's going to be people pulling all types of clips, from different arguments that this prosecutor made, which contradicted his prior arguments. He would make an argument, and then like 2 minutes later, he'll make another argument that contradicts the prior argument. And then he throws out some of the most ridiculous, dumbest things you've ever heard. All right. So like I said, this was just going to be a short video. Just wanting to pull what I thought was some of the biggest, dumbest arguments, or some of the dumb arguments. If I wanted to go off and pull the clips of every stupid thing that this prosecutor said, and everything he said that is in direct opposition to what all the video and witness testimony said, This would go on for like 6-7 hours, depicting bit by bit everything this prosecutor was just going on. Basically, he was just throwing a bunch of shit up the wall and hoping some of it will stick somewhere. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the thumbs up button, leave me comments down below, and go ahead and share this around wherever free speech is available. Thank you so much, and I will be back again soon.